The massive window in Admiral Sarah Chen's office aboard the Lunar Defense Station offered an unmatched view of Earth. After 30 years of service in the United Earth Defense Force, she still found herself mesmerized by the sight of humanity's cradle floating in the void. Today, however, her attention was fixed on something else. A fleet of ships unlike anything humans had ever built, approaching from the direction of Mars. "Status report," she commanded, not taking her eyes off the approaching vessels. 7 vessels, Admiral. Lieutenant Rodriguez responded from his station. "Configurations unknown. They're not broadcasting any recognizable signals, but their approach vector suggests deliberate movement. Definitely not natural objects." The year was 2185, and humanity had spread throughout the solar system. Mars hosted thriving colonies. The moons of Jupiter and Saturn contained research stations, and asteroid mining operations dotted the belt. But in all their expansion, they had never encountered intelligent alien life. Until now. "Alert all solar system installations," Chen ordered. "Defense Condition 2. I want our response measured but ready." She paused, watching as the alien ships slowed their approach. "And get me Director Harrison from First Contact Protocol." Within hours, the alien fleet had taken up position just beyond lunar orbit. Their ships were beautiful in a strange way. Sleek crystalline structures that seemed to flow like liquid metal, refracting sunlight in mesmerizing patterns. When they finally broadcast a communication signal, it was in perfect English. "People of Earth," the message began. "We are representatives of the Galactic Hegemony, a confederation of spacefaring civilizations. We come in peace and friendship." The sender identified himself as High Ambassador Vereen of the Hegemony's diplomatic corps. His holographic image, when it appeared in the station's conference room, showed a being that looked almost human, save for the iridescent scales covering its skin and the 6-fingered hands that gestured with fluid grace. Director Harrison led the initial negotiations, with Admiral Chen present as military advisor. The Hegemony, Vereen explained, had been watching Earth's development for centuries. Now that humans had achieved significant space travel capabilities, they were eligible for membership in the galactic community. But something about Vereen's explanations didn't sit right with Chen. The Admiral had spent her career reading people, and while Vereen wasn't human, his body language spoke volumes. There was tension in his movements when discussing Earth's technological progress, and his answers about other member species were deliberately vague. "Tell me, Ambassador," Chen interrupted during one session, "how many other civilizations have advanced from planetary travel to solar system colonization as quickly as we have?" Vereen's scales shifted color slightly, a reaction they'd never seen before. "None," he admitted. "Your species' rate of technological development is unprecedented." That night, Chen called a secure meeting with her most trusted staff. "They're scared of us," she declared, looking around the room. "Not of what we are, but of what we might become." "The technology they've shown us," Lieutenant Rodriguez added, "it's advanced, yes, but it's stagnant. Their ships use the same basic principles they probably have for millennia. Meanwhile, we've gone from steam engines to quantum drives in less than 3 centuries. "Exactly," Chen nodded. "And I don't think they're here to welcome us. They're here to contain us." Over the next few weeks, Chen's suspicions grew stronger. The Hegemony representatives were generous with certain technologies, mainly consumer goods and medical advances. But whenever discussions turned to propulsion systems, weapons, or artificial intelligence, they became evasive or actively discouraged further research in those areas. The Admiral began making preparations in secret. She connected with influential figures throughout Earth's colonies, scientists, military leaders, and industrialists who shared her concerns. Together, they formed a shadow network, ready to act if their fears proved correct. "We play along," she told her inner circle. "Let them think we're the eager, naive species happy to follow their lead. But we prepare, we innovate, and most importantly, we keep our true capabilities hidden." Unknown to the hegemony, humanity had already made breakthroughs their new mentors thought impossible. In hidden laboratories across the solar system, scientists were developing technologies that would reshape the understanding of physics itself. The real question wasn't whether the hegemony would try to control humanity's development. It was whether they were prepared for humanity's response when they did. As Chen watched another diplomatic session from her office, she allowed herself a small smile. The hegemony thought they were dealing with an infant species taking its first steps into a larger universe. They would soon learn that sometimes the student was capable of teaching the teacher a few lessons. Dr. Maya Patel stood in her underground laboratory beneath the Martian surface, watching as her latest experiment defied everything the hegemony claimed was possible. The device before her, no larger than a coffee cup, contained what she had dubbed a probability drive. A quantum engine that didn't so much move through space as it redistributed the likelihood of its location. Recording test number 47. She spoke into her secure log. Initiating quantum displacement. With a touch of her tablet, the device vanished. An instant later, it appeared in a shielded chamber 5 kilometers away. According to every sensor the hegemony had provided Earth, nothing had moved at all. How's that for impossible physics? She grinned, addressing her team. The gathered scientists broke into quiet applause. After 2 years of working in secret, they had achieved what the hegemony insisted couldn't be done: instantaneous transportation without a trace. While the hegemony's observers watched Earth's official research facilities, humanity's true technological revolution happened in hidden places throughout the solar system. Deep beneath Europa's ice, quantum computers processed calculations that would make their alien visitors' heads spin. In hollowed-out asteroids, engineers assembled ships that incorporated principles the hegemony had never imagined. Colonel James Cato supervised the military side of these preparations from his ostensibly minor post at the Titan mining colony. His real command center lay within the moon's hydrocarbon lakes, undetectable to hegemony scanners. "Show me the latest fleet numbers," he ordered during a secure briefing. His aide brought up a holographic display, showing hundreds of ships hidden throughout the solar system, each equipped with technology that shouldn't exist. "We're at roughly 60% of planned strength," his aide reported. "The new quantum drives are performing better than expected, and Dr. Patel's stealth systems make our ships completely invisible to hegemony detection." The hegemony's representatives continued their guidance of human development, never suspecting that their careful restrictions were being bypassed entirely. Where they expected to find primitive fusion drives, humans had developed something entirely new. While they monitored Earth's basic AI research, far more advanced systems operated in secret. The key to humanity's rapid progress lay in their different approach to physics itself. The hegemony had spent millennia refining the same technologies, creating a technological plateau they couldn't see beyond. Humans, with their shorter history and desperate creativity, found paths the hegemony had never considered. On Venus, Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to the Admiral, made perhaps the most crucial breakthrough. Her team discovered that the hegemony's much-vaunted defensive shields operated on predictable principles that could be bypassed entirely with the right approach. "They're like a fortress with impenetrable walls," she explained to Admiral Chen during a secure quantum communication. "But they never thought someone would figure out how to walk through walls entirely. Our phase-shift weapons pass right through their shields as if they weren't there." Admiral Chen used this growing network of secret advances to prepare for what she knew was coming. The hegemony's patience with humanity's primitive development would eventually run out. When that happened, they would try to force compliance with their technological restrictions. In the asteroid belt, massive fabrication facilities worked continuously, hidden by quantum fields that made them appear as ordinary rocks to any observer. They produced ships, weapons, and defense systems that incorporated humanity's new understanding of physics. "We're not just catching up to them," Colonel Cato commented during one inspection. "We're surpassing them entirely. They've been stuck in the same patterns of thinking for so long, they can't see the alternatives." The greatest challenge wasn't developing the technology, it was keeping it hidden. Every advancement had to be concealed beneath a carefully maintained facade of primitive development. Official research facilities worked on approved projects, while the real breakthroughs happened in secret. Dr. Patel's team achieved another milestone when they developed quantum communication systems that the hegemony couldn't detect or intercept. This allowed Earth's hidden resistance to coordinate more effectively, sharing discoveries and coordinating preparations across the solar system. The interesting thing about the hegemony, Dr. Patel observed during a secure briefing, is that they've become victims of their own success. They've used the same technologies for so long, they've forgotten how to think differently. They see us struggling with basic fusion drives and assume that's the limit of our capabilities. As months passed, humanity's hidden strength grew. Behind the facade of a primitive species learning at the hegemony's feet, they built a force that could challenge the galactic status quo. Ships with capabilities the hegemony thought impossible waited in quantum bubbles throughout the solar system. Weapons that could penetrate any known defense stood ready. Admiral Chen watched it all from her office, maintaining a careful show of deference to their alien mentors while orchestrating humanity's secret renaissance. The hegemony saw what they expected to see: a young species slowly learning to crawl in the cosmic ocean. They never suspected that this infant civilization had already learned to swim in waters they had never imagined. The hegemony's true colors emerged on a quiet Thursday morning. High Ambassador Vereen stood before the United Earth Council, his scaled skin shifting to a deep purple that none of the human diplomats had seen before. Behind him, a holographic display showed dozens of hegemony warships moving into position around Earth. "Your time of probation is over," Vereen announced, his usually smooth voice carrying an edge of steel. "The hegemony has determined that humanity's development must be more strictly controlled. Your species advances too rapidly, too unpredictably. You represent a destabilizing force in the galaxy." Admiral Chen watched the transmission from her lunar office, her expression carefully neutral. Around her, her staff maintained their professional composure, but she could sense their anticipation. Everything they had prepared for was about to begin. "We require the immediate surrender of all research facilities," Vereen continued. "Your space fleet will be reduced to a size appropriate for a primitive species. All artificial intelligence research will cease. This is not a negotiation." The Earth Council members played their parts perfectly, expressing shock and outrage. Council President Torres stood, her voice trembling with seemingly genuine fear. "Ambassador Vereen, surely there must be some middle ground. Our people will never accept such restrictions." "Accept them or not," Vereen replied, his scales now pulsing with color, "they will be enforced. We have contained aggressive species before. The hegemony has maintained galactic stability for 10,000 years. We will not allow a young, reckless species to disrupt that peace." As the confrontation unfolded, humanity's hidden machinery sprang into action. In quantum-shielded bases throughout the solar system, crews rushed to their stations. Dr. Patel's probability drives spun up, ready to move entire fleets in an instant. Colonel Kato's weapons platforms, invisible to hegemony sensors, tracked every alien ship. "Status report," Admiral Chen demanded, her voice low and steady. "All systems operational," Lieutenant Rodriguez replied. "Hidden fleet at full readiness. Quantum communications network stable." Dr. Chen's phase-shift weapons primed and targeted. The hegemony ships had positioned themselves in a standard containment pattern, a formation they had probably used successfully hundreds of times before. They expected to face a primitive fleet with basic fusion drives and chemical weapons. Their sensors showed exactly that: Earth's official defense forces, seemingly helpless before their superior technology. "You have 24 hours to begin compliance," Vereen declared to the Council. "After that, we will begin enforcement actions. I suggest you use this time wisely." His hologram flickered out, leaving the Council chamber in silence. President Torres immediately initiated the prearranged response plan. As far as the hegemony could detect, Earth's military forces began powering down, preparing to surrender. Industrial facilities started shutting down their primitive fusion reactors. Research centers began purging their databases. But in Dr. Patel's hidden laboratory, a very different scene unfolded. Quantum network fully operational, she reported to Admiral Chen. We can move our entire fleet simultaneously, completely undetected. The probability matrix is stable. Throughout the solar system, humanity's real strength lay coiled, ready to strike. The hegemony's containment fleet had positioned itself perfectly, exactly where humanity wanted them. Every alien ship was already targeted by weapons they couldn't detect, using principles they didn't understand. Colonel Cato ran final checks on his hidden fleet. All ships report ready, he informed Admiral Chen. Phase shift weapons loaded and primed. Quantum drives at full power. We can hit them from 6 different directions before they know we're there. In her office, Admiral Chen allowed herself a small smile. The hegemony had made the classic mistake of an aging empire. They assumed their way was the only way. They had spent so long at the top that they'd forgotten how innovation worked. They saw humanity's official technology and assumed they knew everything. Send word to all commands, she ordered. Operation Phoenix is now active. Maintain quantum silence until my signal. She turned to gaze out at the hegemony ships surrounding Earth, their crystalline hulls gleaming in the sunlight. They looked powerful, invincible even, to anyone who didn't know better. You know, she mused to her staff, they named themselves the hegemony. They're so convinced of their superiority that they built it into their very identity. That's the kind of arrogance that breeds weakness. As the ultimatum's deadline approached, humanity's hidden strength remained poised for action. The hegemony thought they were about to contain a primitive species. Instead, they were about to learn a lesson that younger civilizations had often taught to older ones throughout history. Never mistake technological differences for inferiority. Never assume that your way is the only way. And never, ever, try to cage a species that had gone from horse-drawn carriages to spaceflight in less than 3 centuries. As the hegemony's deadline approached its final hour, High Ambassador Vareen stood on his flagship's command deck, watching Earth's apparent surrender unfold. The primitive fusion drives of human ships were powering down exactly as ordered. Their planetary defense stations fell silent. Everything proceeded according to plan, a plan the hegemony had executed dozens of times before. Send the containment teams, he ordered, his scales shimmering with satisfaction. Begin the technological reassignment protocols. At that exact moment, Admiral Chen sat in her lunar office, watching the same scene with very different eyes. All commands, execute Operation Phoenix, she transmitted through the quantum network. Show them what humanity can really do. The space around Earth suddenly came alive with impossible activity. Hundreds of ships materialized from nowhere, appearing simultaneously at strategic points throughout the solar system. They hadn't traveled there. They had redistributed their quantum probability to simply exist in their new positions. To the hegemony sensors, it would have seemed like reality itself had hiccuped. Impossible, Vareen whispered, watching as his containment fleet was suddenly surrounded by vessels that shouldn't exist. His sensors couldn't even properly detect them. The ships seemed to flicker in and out of reality, their energy signatures defying known physics. Dr. Patel's voice came through Chen's quantum comm. Probability drive network stable. Admiral. All ships successfully repositioned. The hegemony sensors can't get a lock on any of them. The human ships moved in ways that violated everything the hegemony knew about space travel. They didn't accelerate. They simply shifted position, appearing and disappearing at will. Their weapons didn't fire energy beams or projectiles. Instead, they altered the fundamental properties of space around their targets. This cannot be, Vareen protested as the first reports of shield failures came in. Your species isn't capable of this level of technology. We've been monitoring your development. No, Ambassador, Chen replied. finally opening a direct channel to his ship. "You've been monitoring what we wanted you to monitor. You saw exactly what you expected to see. A primitive species playing with fusion drives and chemical rockets. Your arrogance made you blind." Colonel Cato's forces demonstrated just how thoroughly humanity had surpassed their would-be controllers. Phase-shift weapons passed straight through the hegemony's supposedly impenetrable shields as if they weren't there. Quantum torpedoes didn't damage their targets. They redistributed their probability until portions of the ships simply ceased to exist. "Status report," Chen commanded, watching the hegemony fleet's formation crumble. "Their shields are useless against our phase weapons," Cato reported. Dr. Chen's theories were correct. They never considered that someone might attack through quantum space instead of normal space. The hegemony ships tried to fight back, unleashing their most powerful weapons. But they were firing at probability shadows, hitting targets that had already redistributed themselves elsewhere in space-time. Humanity's ships seemed to dance through their barrage, insubstantial as ghosts one moment, devastatingly real the next. "You don't understand," Dr. Paddle explained over an open channel to the hegemony fleet. "While you spent millennia perfecting the same technologies, we looked for different answers entirely. You built better walls. We learned to walk through them. You improved your engines. We rewrote the rules of movement itself." In less than an hour, the mighty hegemony containment fleet had been reduced to scattered, powerless hulks. Not through superior firepower or overwhelming numbers, but through technology that worked on principles they hadn't even imagined possible. "Admiral," Varine's voice came through, subdued now. How did you develop all this without us knowing?" Chen allowed herself a small smile. "Because you saw what you expected to see, Ambassador. You assumed that because we were young, we must be primitive. You never considered that our youth might be our greatest strength. We haven't had time to become set in our ways. We haven't forgotten how to think differently." The quantum network hummed with activity as humanity's hidden fleet secured strategic positions throughout the solar system. Ships that had been concealed in quantum bubbles now emerged openly, their impossible drives and reality-bending weapons standing as testimony to humanity's true capabilities. Perhaps, Chen suggested to the defeated ambassador, it's time for the hegemony to consider a different approach to galactic stability. One that doesn't involve suppressing young civilizations, but learning from them instead. After all, sometimes the student can teach the teacher a thing or two about innovation. As the dust settled from humanity's overwhelming victory, Admiral Chen looked out at Earth, still peaceful and blue in the void. The hegemony had tried to cage humanity, to force them into a comfortable, predictable box. Instead, they had learned a lesson as old as civilization itself. The most dangerous mistake an empire can make is assuming that their way is the only way. 6 months after humanity's demonstration of technological supremacy, the Galactic Hegemony's Grand Council chamber hosted an unprecedented event. For the first time in 10,000 years, a new species was being admitted not as a supervised member, but as an equal partner. Admiral Chen stood before the assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds, her dress uniform gleaming under the crystalline chamber's lights. Beside her, Dr. Patel and Colonel Cato represented humanity's scientific and military achievements. The chamber buzzed with nervous energy. Many council members still couldn't quite believe how thoroughly their assumptions about humanity had been shattered. "We gather today," High Counselor Varine announced, his scales now a humble shade of blue, "to recognize a truth that recent events have made undeniable. Humanity's approach to science and innovation has opened our eyes to possibilities we have forgotten existed." The last 6 months had seen a complete restructuring of galactic society. The hegemony's policy of technological suppression had been abandoned, replaced by a new doctrine of collaborative development. Humanity's quantum probability drives, phase-shift weapons, and reality-bending innovations had sparked a renaissance of scientific inquiry throughout known space. "We thought we were protecting the galaxy by maintaining technological stability," Varine continued. Instead, we had trapped ourselves in a cage of our own making. We forgot that progress comes not from perfecting old methods, but from daring to imagine new ones entirely. Dr. Patel had become something of a celebrity among alien scientists. Her quantum probability theories had revolutionized their understanding of physics itself. Research centers throughout the galaxy now hummed with experiments based on human principles, exploring paths that had been ignored for millennia. The greatest lesson we've learned, Dr. Patel addressed the council, isn't about technology at all. It's about the danger of assuming that experience always equals wisdom. Sometimes, fresh eyes see paths that older ones have forgotten to look for. Humanity's emergence had triggered changes far beyond the scientific realm. The hegemony's political structure, unchanged for thousands of years, underwent rapid evolution. Younger species, previously kept under strict control, were now encouraged to contribute their unique perspectives and innovations. Colonel Caddo had worked closely with alien military leaders, showing them how humanity's different approach to problem-solving could enhance rather than threaten galactic security. Strength doesn't come from having the biggest guns, he explained during one session. It comes from being able to imagine solutions that your opponent hasn't even considered possible. But perhaps the most profound change was in the hegemony's fundamental philosophy. The belief that stability required control had been replaced by an understanding that true progress came from embracing diversity, not just of species, but of ideas and approaches. We stand at the dawn of a new era, Admiral Chen addressed the council. Not one dominated by humanity, but one where all species contribute their unique perspectives. The galaxy is vast, and no single approach can unlock all its mysteries. Research teams throughout known space now combine human innovation with alien experience, creating technologies that neither could have developed alone. Quantum probability theory merged with ancient alien engineering principles. Phase shift technology found applications in medicine and exploration that its human inventors had never imagined. Perhaps this was the real test all along, Vereen mused privately to Chen after the ceremony. Not whether humanity could be controlled, but whether the hegemony could learn to let go of control. Your species taught us that true stability comes not from enforcing uniformity, but from embracing change. As the formal ceremony concluded, Chen found herself once again gazing out at the stars. But now, instead of seeing potential threats to be contained, the hegemony saw partners in exploration. Humanity had earned its place not through force of arms, but by demonstrating that innovation and different perspectives were strengths to be celebrated, not dangers to be controlled. We're not special because we're smarter or better, Chen reflected to her team. We're special because we're different, and we help the galaxy remember that different isn't dangerous. It's essential for progress. The quantum ships that had once hidden from hegemony sensors now proudly patrolled joint defense sectors. The laboratories that had operated in secret became centers of collaborative research, and throughout the galaxy, species young and old embraced a new understanding that the future belonged not to those who could enforce their way of thinking, but to those who could learn from ways of thinking they had never imagined. Humanity had come to the stars expecting to find mentors. Instead, they had become teachers, showing an ancient civilization that true wisdom lay not in knowing all the answers, but in never stopping to ask new questions.